Welcome to ABC News Live. I'm Diane Macedo. Our top stories this morning: allegations of sexual assault against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. His accuser is now coming forward with her story. We're also keeping an eye on the latest damage from Florence. The governor of North Carolina now saying it is never more dangerous than right now. We're going to take a look at how that area is doing. But first, here are your top headlines.
More evacuations are being ordered south of Salt Lake City as wildfires continue to grow. The fires have burned through more than 80,000 acres, forcing about 6,000 people from their homes, 2,000 homes being threatened by the fires.
In the Philippines, heavy equipment flying through the debris after a monster typhoon hit over the weekend, triggering mudslides. At least 40 people are confirmed dead.
A Border Patrol agent now in custody in Texas, accused of killing 4 women.
There's probable cause to believe that this individual is responsible for this series of murders, which I would qualify as a serial murder.
National Transportation Safety Board Chair Robert Sumult says it was an overcharged gas main that touched off explosions and fires 3 communities north of Boston this past Thursday night.
The NTSB can confirm at this time that this was indeed an overpressure situation.
He says pressure sensors that would have signaled trouble were attached to a gas main that had been taken out of service. Amazon's looking for some leakers. The company is investigating reports that some of its employees have been selling internal information like sales data and contact information for product reviewers, also allegedly for sales services to delete negative reviews and restoring banned accounts.
We're going to start things off with those allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. His accuser now is coming forward, accusing him of sexual assault 35 years ago and telling her story. Terry Moran has the latest on that from our D.C. bureau. And Terry, can you just start by walking us through who this accuser is and what the allegations are?
Sure, Diane. Her name is Christine Blasey Ford. She is a college professor in California. She went to Holton Arms Prep School. That's one of these Tony prep schools in the suburbs of Washington. Brett Kavanaugh went to the Georgetown Prep School at about the same time. And her allegation, as is now well known, is that at a party roughly 35 years ago when both were teens and high school students, Kavanaugh was drunk. He and a friend, Ms. Blasey Ford alleges, trapped her in a room with Kavanaugh, she says, trying to force himself on her and muffling her mouth so that her cries would not be heard. She managed to escape and flee. Kavanaugh categorically denies it all. And now it is a he said, she said battle that will be tried in a media circus and a ferocious partisan battle, which is frankly unlikely to get at the truth of the matter.
Now, one of the big questions is whether or not, we'll end up hearing her testimony on Capitol Hill. Her attorney actually addressed that possibility on Good Morning America today. I just want to play that clip real quick.
She's willing to cooperate. What she's not willing to do is to be part of this bloodletting that happens in Washington. We only need to look at the Anita Hill hearings to know what that's going to look like. And that's not a fair way to get at the truth.
So what does that mean? That she would talk to the FBI, but that she doesn't want to testify publicly before the Senate Judiciary Committee?
I'm not saying that. We will consider all options. What I'm saying is that this has to be fair and thorough. And it can't be part of a slugging match. If we're really trying to get at the truth, hearings should not be used to be weaponized against those who accuse powerful men. And that's how this is being set up.
And that was Ford's attorney, of course, referring to Judge Clarence Thomas, the hearings before he was confirmed to the Supreme Court. So, Terry, what do you see happening here? The Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to vote on Thursday. Can they still move forward?
Well, not without hearing from Christine Blasey Ford, because at the very least, Senator Jeff Flake, one of those Republicans, and they only have a 1-vote margin, says he believes that the committee must hear from Dr. Blasey Ford. And if that happens, perhaps they could do it in a few days, but it's unlikely. Now, how that will happen is another matter. The chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Chuck Grassley, has suggested a telephone call. She could be put under oath, Could be telephone call, could be behind the scenes, which might lower the temperature around this. The Democrats are insisting that she be heard, as is the White House. The president's counselor, Kellyanne Conway, telling Fox News that she'd talked to the president, and the directions from the White House are no one is to insult or ignore this woman. She will be heard. So we're going to have some kind of swearing contest, as the lawyers say, with both parties essentially telling their version of the story. Now, there are things that are checkable. Christine Blasey Ford says there were other people at this party. Can they be tracked down? Can they put Brett Kavanaugh there? Did they say he was drunk? Did they say anything about her affect? And also things in her background are bound to come out as well. It's going to be ugly, no question about it.
Yep, a story, and that will be combed through very carefully, I'm sure. Terry Moran from our D.C. Bureau. Terry, thanks. And we heard Terry saying that the White House is saying they are open to having Ford testify. I want to get to Karen Travers, who's at the White House. And coincidentally, Brett Kavanaugh is also at the White House right now. Karen, what are we hearing?
He is, Diane, and the White House is not saying who he's meeting with or what that meeting would be about, but Brett Kavanaugh was spotted going into the White House within the last hour, and we're, of course, trying to figure out exactly what he's doing here. There has been no response yet from President Trump about these allegations made against his Supreme Court nominee. Nothing after the New Yorker first published that piece late last week, and nothing after the Washington Post published the interview with Christine Blasey Ford. That's notable, kind of surprising that the president hasn't put something out on Twitter. But his counselor, senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway, this morning did an interview and talked to reporters, and she said she has talked extensively with the president about these allegations. Here's what she had to say.
Ford's attorney says she's willing to testify. Should she be heard on Capitol Hill?
Absolutely. She should not be insulted. She should not be ignored. She should testify under oath, and she should do it on Capitol Hill. But that's up to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They need to decide the forum.
Should the vote be delayed?
Judge Kavanaugh should also testify as to these 36-year-old allegations.
And Kavanaugh said in a new statement issued within the last hour that he is willing to talk to the Senate Judiciary Committee to refute these false allegations, he says, and defend his integrity. The White House certainly making clear it's up to members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to decide how exactly that would go forward and what that could look like if Kavanaugh is brought back for more conversations.
I know Kavanaugh also issued a denial through the White House in a statement as well. So no doubt we will be hearing from both sides in the coming week. Karen Travers from the White House for us. Karen, thank you. And now we want to get to that growing devastation from Florence. The system is still causing so much damage, particularly in the Carolinas. North Carolina's governor is now warning it has never been more dangerous than it is right now. That's a quote from the governor, and Eva Pilgrim is in Fayetteville, North Carolina for us. Eva, what does it look like where you are right now? All I see behind you is water.
Well, that's because there's a lot of water here. It stopped raining, but the governor talking about it's never been more dangerous. He's talking about these rivers. This is the little river here behind me. I just want to show you. And we were actually here yesterday morning for GMA, and I was standing. You see that box down there? That box actually houses precious meteorological equipment, and that's how they measure the rivers. And this particular box is of utmost importance because it gives readings that really help them predict what's going to happen downstream. So there were some guys out here a couple days ago, and they raised that box up because they were concerned it would end up in the water and they wouldn't be able to predict. If you look at my live shot from yesterday morning, I was standing below that box, and there's a little piece of wood there. I'm much shorter than that wood, and I was explaining to people that at the point that this river was going to crest, I would be squarely underwater. If I was to walk out to that spot right now, I would not be able to even put my hands up. You might be able to see my fingertips coming out, and that's just how high that this river is. We'll take a little walk here so you can see more of the water. This is the concern as these rivers start to rise and start to crest, that they are going to overflow their banks, and you're seeing that. And you're seeing that also further south in Wilmington, in that Wilmington area along the I-40 corridor. We flew over in a chopper yesterday. We saw a lot of towns that were flooded, that are still flooded. And the major issue there, Diane, is that they will likely be in this major flood stage for days.
You really get the picture when you look, A, at your live shot and also at that stop sign behind you. I mean, nearly submerged in water. Eva, what's expected going forward? What's the plan from here?
Well, at this point, they have to wait for the water to recede because there's not a whole lot of ways into these areas. When we were flying over in the chopper yesterday, you see just how hard it is to get around. You can get around by boat, but in a lot of the areas, it's too deep to even get around in some of those bigger vehicles. So they just have to wait to be able to go in to, one, look to see what the damage is, and then two, begin to repair. So a lot of people just waiting and watching. We talked to a gentleman last night in our hotel who's from Wilmington, and he can't go home yet. And that's a lot of people who have evacuated from that area.
And how are those people holding up now?
I mean, they've been in a hotel for days now, so you can imagine they're full of a bit of anxiety, and they want to get home. They're really curious about what has happened to their property. What does their house look like? You know, it's your whole life in your house. It's your home. And so, you know, as they wait, they're just waiting for someone to give them the cue that they can leave. I want to also show you this area is under a mandatory evacuation. And when we were here a couple days ago, people weren't really leaving. We're now seeing a steady stream of cars just leaving this area because you can see the water is up and people are, you know, seeing the results of the river coming out of its bed and really taking the warning. It's time to get out of here.
Yeah, so many times, no matter how many times that we issue warnings on television and through other media, people really hope it's not going to be so bad, and unfortunately now they're seeing it was in their case. All right, Eva Pilgrim Forrest in Wilmington, North Carolina. Eva, thank you. We want to, in Fayetteville, I'm sorry. We do want to get to Emily Rao, though, who is in Wilmington. A lot of the Carolinas are under flash flood warnings in some areas. They still have not seen the worst of this. Emily Rao is taking a look at that flood danger over in Wilmington. Emily?
Hey, good morning, Diane. Yes, we are right along the Cape Fear River, which is in downtown Wilmington along the Riverwalk. You can see all the water behind me. The tide is slowly coming up at this point. Water everywhere, as you know, very high. This river actually broke a record on Friday, the highest that it's ever been. I've been chatting with the National Weather Service folks to get updates on that and just huge amounts of rainfall. The rain, though, finally let up this morning. I haven't seen any rainfall today, actually, which is pretty incredible after so many days of just that relentless water coming down. We saw the sun for a little bit earlier today, but it has now gotten cloudy and windy again, so hard to tell what exactly will happen next. People here in Wilmington are starting to get out a little bit more. They want to survey the damage. As Eva mentioned, people are curious about their homes. They want to know what they're dealing with and coming back here into town. But still a lot of huge trees down. If not from the initial high winds and the storm, we saw that damage coming from the water, the ground just being so saturated that these big trees, you can tell have been around for decades and decades, are just falling over into the streets, into some homes because of the amount of incredible rainfall that we've gotten here in Wilmington. Diane?
Yeah, it's just so sad to see the level of devastation. Hopefully they can bounce back quickly. Emily Rao Forrest in Wilmington, North Carolina. Thanks, Emily. And with those waters high and still rising, as you can imagine, there are nonstop rescue efforts underway to try to get trapped residents. Amy Robach is on the ground in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, where she's seen a lot of those rescue efforts firsthand. Amy?
Diane, so many towns here in North Carolina are literally underwater. In fact, the city of Wilmington is essentially now an island. It's virtually impossible to get in or out. The floodwaters have shut down roads, they've shut down the airport and the port itself. The only way we got out, you're looking at it right behind me, a U.S. Coast Guard helicopter. 17 of these choppers have been sent to the area to rescue people stranded in the floodwaters. And we went out with the Coast Guard on a search and rescue mission. And there are so many people out there who are having medical emergencies in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence, and they're trapped in their homes with no way out. One woman we picked up was suffering from appendicitis. She needed immediate surgery. Another man was very short of breath. He was in dire condition. These are life or death situations, and I have to say it was an honor to watch our brave flight crew risk their lives to save these residents and get them to hospitals. Now, to date, here's some numbers for you. The U.S. Coast Guard has saved by air 193 people, 91 pets. They're also saving people by boat as well. 60 other rescues, 71 pets. Those numbers are definitely going to rise as the floodwaters are expected to do over the next several days. This is going to be a very busy area here for some time to come. Diane?
That indeed. And it's so amazing the work they do. Amy, thanks for that inside look. And finally, we want to get to Ginger Z so we can know what to expect going forward. Ginger has the forecast for us. Ginger?
Diane, thank you. I wish I could say that the threat was over, but it is so far from that because those record levels of rivers, major and record flood stage, all the way through the end of the week. So people are feeling trapped. Look at the homes surrounded by water. Really, when we were there and we were trying to get out, it was nearly impossible, and that was Saturday morning. Since then, it's gotten even more difficult to travel, even more difficult for rescue operations. And whether you have trees down on your street or you've got water surrounding your home, this is not going to be remedied at least until midweek or beyond. Flash flood warnings then still in place from Greensboro and Durham up through Roanoke. So now those go all the way through Roanoke. And the heaviest rain really falling in that shield that includes Ohio and Kentucky. So flash flood watches extend all the way to Boston. Look at the number of rivers, and this isn't even all of them, in record stage. So it's tough to get a river to reach record. Not when you have 3 days straight of rain, though, and that's what we had with this situation. Moving this to the north, I wanted to time this out for you because a lot of places in Virginia, in Maryland, in Pennsylvania have had one of their wettest summers. So all it's going to take is a couple of inches of rain, and we could see significant flooding on some of the rivers here. So the threat now moves north, interior New England through the day Tuesday, and Tuesday night the front comes together and finally gets what is left of Florence out to sea. So we're looking at, again, mid to beyond week for North Carolina, but a lot of us have a threat for the next 48 hours, even here in the Northeast. Diane.
All right, Ginger Z from the Weather Center. Ginger, thank you. And that does it for us here at ABC News Live. But remember, you can get all the day's headlines all day long at abcnews.com or at your ABC News app. For ABC News Live, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day and stay safe.